And live. And hello, this is Jonathan McGuinness. Welcome back to the weekly podcast from Questions of Fire. I'm delighted again. This is actually episode 15, and the energy of the people that are coming on board is increasing every time we have it. The next lady that we have on board, before I go into a full detail, we'll bring her on picture here. Olivia, welcome to the weekly podcast for Questions of Fire.
Woo! Thank you so much. I do feel welcomed. It's lovely being here.
Thank you. Thank you. What I'd like to, a little bit of background about Olivia, how I came across her. She has fantastic content and posts on the web. If you watch her, your energy rises. There's a bit of fun. There's a lot of color. I really like the color and the movement. And if you read the intention and listen to her voice around the post, it's absolutely fantastic. So we've had a bit of a pre-chat because I wanted to get to know Olivia better and then also share Olivia's energy with you guys and what I really like. And I think somehow the people you meet reflect where you're at in that particular moment in time. And I'm buzzing. So I'm reckoning that Olivia is off the charts, and that's the type of person that I want to meet. So connecting to myself, making sure I have the energy so I can share the energy. That's where I feel, and I'm letting go a lot of the past. And then as I listen to her, she says some things that gives me new revelations and insights that resonates with my spirit. So I just thought I'd love to have her on. I asked her very recently, would she honor us with her presence and just let us get to know your story, Olivia, which I think is fantastic in itself. So welcome, and please tell us a little bit about how did you become this colorful, dynamic, vibrant coach that we see a lot of on social media.
Thank you so much. You know, when you say, oh, we are a reflection, and all I could think about was, oh, you've been singing in the shower too. I call it my manifestation chamber. And I kid you not, every morning I have my ritual, you know, and ritual is such a word, and it's maybe a little bit, you know, like, intense, but it really is like I have so much fun in the morning. I am a morning person, so I wake up and I am full of life and like just energy. And I go in the shower and I sing in the shower and I dance, and I really feel like I am pulling from the ether all of these beautiful experiences that I wish to have, you know, everything from I get free coffee wherever I go, people love me, you know, whatever space I walk into, my energy like radiates, and it truly feels that way. So yeah, to answer your question, how did I become this radiant being? Well, first of all, thank you for your kind words. Shedding and shedding and shedding and shedding layers upon layers upon layers of what and who I am not, I would say. So it's only the contrast of who I am not that I get to really recall, remember, because it's not really discovering, it's really uncovering and remembering who I am. And so, yeah, the journey continues. It's every day. It's a new, you know, every day. It's an ongoing journey.
So two things come to mind, because today on the blog, actually, or we'll call it the group, there was a lot of questions about, well, you know, what do I ask myself in the morning? There's a lovely lady who was asking that and giving examples. And we were all answering with questions and words. And you just gave me something beautiful. You do something physical. You just dance and sing. And maybe that's as good as any morning question that we could have. It's a sort of physical connection to what's going on to the day. So I think that's wonderful as an additional answer to what we could do first thing, Olivia. Thank you.
Well, we are mind, body, and spirit, right? And I think that the biggest addiction, according to Eckhart Tolle, I listen to him so much. I read his books, and he says is the addiction to thinking. And we rely so much on our intellect that we forget that we can also manifest through our body, through the health and well-being of the body. And so to move, this is something that I've also incorporated recently in my shares and in the content that I give out, is to dance. Because, you know, see, I grew up and there was this sort of shame behind how you dance. So it's okay to dance, but don't dance like this, and don't dance too much, and don't show too much, and don't do this. So at the end, it was like it felt restrictive. And only like recently have I got, you know, I asked myself, why should I? and I have started to implement that more and more, and it gives me that femininity, that raw power, which is that sensuality. And it is something not to be scared of, but to know how to harness that energy. So when I am in this meditation and manifestation chamber, which is my shower, then I really feel into how beautiful it is to experience my body so healthy. So when right now we are in the midst of this whole pandemic, and we know of people who have gotten ill and sick, and it really is about keeping our energies high, our vibes really healthy and high frequency, so that we can be strong in the midst of all adversities. So it's a very good tool to move your body, to feel yourself from the inside out, and to just allow it to express itself.
Oh, I love that. I just read a book recently. It's called The Alter Ego by Todd Herman. And this new network came out, this audio network, Clubhouse. And I got to talk to the guy and ask, so it was absolutely fantastic. But he brought up a story in his book that really reflects what you're saying. Is one of the most famous pop stars that exists on the planet right now was a gospel singer when she was younger. Fantastic. People came everywhere to see her. But it's conservative, so you don't move your body very much in a religious outing. And then people wanted to hear her more. So what she did is she actually invented an alter ego. Sasha Fierce was the alter ego's name. Now, I'm not sure if you know who I'm talking about, but for 6 or 7 years, she pretended to be Sasha Fierce, just so she could be a little bit more seductive, a little bit more sensual, and everything else like that. That today is Beyonce. Because she wasn't allowed to do it, she invented another name. And you're making me think we mightn't do the ego thing, but we often cover ourselves up or have to pretend some way. And you're saying just let it all go. And I like that, as who you are, Olivia.
Absolutely. Why do you think Lady Gaga and, all these massive icons are so famous? It's because somehow we are like, oh, well, that person can. And we see what we are not daring to, or the places we're not daring to go to out of fear, like Marianne Williamson says, not so much of our shadow, but of our light, of the raw power that we have as human beings. So the more that I lean into this, like, oh, I mean, I have hips, I have, I am Latina. So for too long, I've, apologized for this, and I am not there anymore. I'm like, owning my whole femininity, my womanhood, and proud of it. And when I do, the response has been so beautiful by women who reach out to me privately. Sometimes they comment as well, and they're like, thank you for giving me permission, for saying it's okay to do this as well. And when that happens, I'm like, this is the reason why I want to continue doing this. It's not out of a place of ego, like, look at me. It's out of a place of, when you look at children before the age of 4, when they start to be indoctrinated, and this is right and this is wrong, before they go into duality, kids live in oneness. Everything is one, so they are free in their spirit. They are free. They dance. As soon as they can stand up, they start to move, in wonky ways. And so where along the line do we forget how to be playful and how to be free? So it's time we recall that and we come back to that playfulness.
So that's a really powerful thing, Olivia. I have a thing, maybe, I love to dance if you get me on the dance floor. But my thing quite often is just walking down the street. I love to look at people in the eyes, people I don't even know, and I'll even nod. Maybe it's a bit of an Irish thing as well. I'll nod, I'll say hello, how are you? Some of them probably think I'm a nutcase, but well, I'm in Ireland, it's normal. But when you're abroad, I'm in Italy here now at the moment, and I find it very attractive, and it can be a man or a woman, when they will look me back in the eye or where they will acknowledge me. And now it's a step beyond that, where you can dance and smile and be yourself and let people watch you and you watch them and talk to each other. We say kinesthetically, I'm not sure the right word, Olivia. That's a power. A lot of people don't have that. And I'm not sure if I'm using the right word, confidence, to allow that. What got you there? What says, I'm going to be courageous? And then you mightn't feel comfortable now. What got you to the position of saying, hey, I'm doing it. That's it.
Well, I lived in Bali, and I remember going to an ecstatic dance at the yoga barn. And I was, for the longest time, I didn't want to step onto the yoga barn because I was like, nah, this is commercial and I don't want it, and da da da. And my friends were like, just once, just come with us once. And it's on Sundays. And you had to like double queue because you have to first get a number and then you have to go again. And I was like, oh my God, like, how is this not like back when I was a teenager, trying to get into clubs, you know? But I was like,
Okay.
I'm going to do it at least one time. And seriously, when I stepped, because it's capped at 100 people. It's this
Okay.
beautiful wooden floor. It's on a second floor, a story, and it looks into the jungle, and it's really beautiful. I mean, Ubud is magical. And I remember two-stepping, like Hitch, you know, like this movie Hitch. And I was like, okay, this is my safe space. This is, I'm not, you know, no one's gonna
Sure.
be offended. And then I started to observe, because one of the rules in ecstatic dance, I don't know if you know about this, is you don't talk. You don't talk. It is purely an inward journey. You
Okay.
move
Okay.
off of the collective energy, but it's an inward journey. It's a solo journey through the
Mm.
collective. And so I started to watch, and I noticed people were just not really giving a damn. They were really just doing their own thing. And I was like, that kind of looks nice. And so I
Yeah.
also started to kind of close my eyes. And I was very fortunate in that the person who was guiding it was very good at it. So
Yeah.
through the guidance and all, I started to allow myself, to give myself permission. And then I started to, you know, move my body in ways that maybe I had never done it, you know, a bit like a jaguar, or like some sort of like, I don't know, jungle creature, like a frog. And
Love
then
it.
it started to feel like, wow, like I can do this. No one is telling me not to. And I gave myself more and more and more permission. By the end of that ecstatic dance, I was both crying and laughing at the same time, because there was so much release through the soma, the body, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
all of the places that were constricted and like, oh, I can't because I shouldn't. They started to loosen up. And once I did it, I was like sweating and laughing and crying, and I just felt so alive and vibrant. And I thought, this is so healthy. This is medicine. It's movement medicine.
Oh,
So I never
fantastic.
felt.
So two questions come to mind. I was very lucky. I did a Tony Robbins. I did the Mastery University, all of that, and one of them was the Health Mastery up in Loch Lomond in Scotland, and we did a trance dance. I think, no, I don't think. I feel, I know in my soul that it was the most transformative 20 minutes, 30 minutes of my life, where someone was talking through about letting go of things, and we moved how we wanted to, in the dark, kind of on the floor, and it was absolutely fabulous. And I could feel myself like a snake shedding its skin. Old things were going away. It had
Beautiful.
much more than a dance. There was an emotional component there. And you said something at the very beginning, and it's drawn me back to that of letting go, letting go, letting go. And that dance and letting go was one of the ways. But I know you help people let go, and you let go yourself because you have to be what you do as well. What are great ways to let go, Olivia, for everybody? Because some people think, oh, yoga is the answer, meditation is the answer, this is the answer. For me, actually, running is my favorite thing to do. I just get in the zone. So, what are the ways that you suggest for people who know they're a bit stuck, but they would like to let go? How could they start that process?
That's a great question. And the phrase that comes to mind is lean in, because there are many doorways, you see. And the beauty of what I do is that I have training in yoga, in tantra, in meditation, and so in Reiki, energy healing. These are all doorways. So some
Yeah,
people just want to lie down and have crystals all over them. So that's a doorway, and it's okay. You can explore that. Other people want to move their bodies, so then they can go to yoga. Other people love sex, and they're like, well, maybe this is it, and why not?
yeah,
So
yeah,
it depends on which doorway. But I would say, when you get that inkling, that awareness of, oh, I'm a little scared of going there. Oh, I'm a little scared of doing that. Lean into that. And I'm going to share a story here, because I'm in Izmir, Turkey now, and I have been here for 10 days. And for the last 3 days, this idea came to mind. I wanted to go for a bike ride. And there's a beautiful seaside like bike path.
yeah.
But as soon as I thought about getting on the bike, my mind went into the classical scenario of, what if? but what if you get lost? And what if you don't know? And what if your phone dies? And what if, and on my mind went, right? But thank goodness for the awareness that I had, that I caught myself, and I'm like, oh, here is a beautiful what if. So, I noticed myself as well becoming busy. So this is one of the mechanisms that usually when we don't want to lean into it, we procrastinate, we bury ourselves in work. And I kept telling myself, no, I have to edit this video and I have to do that. But the truth is that I was shying away from doing what my soul felt like, wouldn't it be nice to do that? Wouldn't it feel nice to do that? Because I was afraid to do it alone, because it's a new city and da-da-da. Finally, I was like, oh no, I don't get to, because this is exactly the work that I do with my clients, which is going and fear busting, which is the topic of today, is fear busting. So I was like, I'm going to do it. Even if it is only for 5 minutes, I need to get on this bike, get to the corner, and then I'll decide if I come back. But I will at least get myself to the corner. And of course, I got myself well beyond, and I went to where I wanted to go, and it was beautiful in the day. And it was one of those moments where I felt like, as they say, the way over or across is through. Yeah. So that's exactly it. There is no avoiding it. Eventually, you will be faced with, this is the place of fear. And it is up to you whether you turn around and go back inland, or you see the shore and you see the island. I call it the island, like Joy Island. Everything that you can possibly wish for is across, but you need to swim through it. You need to swim yourself. You cannot just take a kayak. You must swim across to get to the point of where you can have everything that you want. So, so to answer it in brief, leaning into the fear, being aware and leaning into that space.
So I'm probably an opposite extreme. And when you brought up fear, I really liked it, Olivia, because I've done parachute jumps, I've done marathons, anything you can think of, I've probably done it. And I was the biggest denier of fear that it ever even exists. If I'm scared, excuse my language, if I'm scared beyond hell, I'm like, gotta do it. But then I realized sometimes I get in way over my head. So like there's kind of like you're talking about, there's some who need to approach fear. And then there's some people who probably need, Dr. Common Sense to knock on the side of my head and say, hold on, Jonathan, or hold on, whoever you are. Where do you bring yourself? Where's that comfortable sweet spot? Because we've a whole range, of spectrum of 7 billion people or whatever. And some of us do what I do, which was suppress the fear and I'll do it anyway, and maybe nearly break my leg doing a marathon, not being trained enough, but just out of pure spite or whatever the word is. And then there's people who struggle with facing small fears. So, we've a whole spectrum. But there's some people who've managed to kind of dance with fear, maybe is the word, Olivia, I don't know, but rather than have either of those extreme positions.
Yeah, so it's interesting you mentioned this, because earlier today in the morning, I watched a video by Russell Brand, and it was how to mess up relationships. And he mentioned these two terms, and I thought, how smart that is. He mentioned neurosis and psychosis. And he said neurosis is when you are like so scared, like, oh my God, you are like a turtle. You just retract into your shell, into your safe space. So those would be the people who are like, oh, I would never, right? And then it depends on how you have been raised and all the conditions around your life, especially in early age, whether you take that or you go to the psychosis, which is, oh, I can do anything. I can jump off a building, which is, what you are sharing. Neither of them is balanced, right? Because yes, of course you can, but also sometimes that common sense will keep you safe, right? So as you say, it's finding that middle ground, like the yoga way, which is the middle ground, to say, yes, I can, but do I need to? Or what am I trying to prove and to whom, right? Because that's also a form of ego. So that's why the awareness, watching. My yoga teacher always said, watch yourself. It's like you have two guns in your pockets. Watch yourself, catch yourself. Watch yourself, catch yourself. Watch yourself, catch yourself.
Like
He's drawing both, So it's the observation of the self. It's the self-study.
Excellent. I really love that. And that was probably the nicest way anyone has ever called me psychotic in my entire life. But thank
lovingly,
you.
though. Like lovingly. Yeah, because it would be an imbalance for you to continually try to push yourself. This is an imbalance towards the masculine. In the work that I do, I talk a lot about polarity. And a lot of women and men nowadays are experiencing burnout, because burnout is actually going in towards that masculine polarity, which is I need to do more, do, achieve, achieve, achieve. And the feminine is receptive. It is peaceful, and it is soothing, it is calming, it is yin energy. And so to balance that is important, which in your case would be like, do I really need to, I've done it 10 times. Do I need to do an 11th jump just to prove something to someone? Or can I just lay here on my hammock and watch the pictures of when I did it 10 years ago? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. We just got a question there from Michael, who I actually know, and he said some people are risk takers and some aren't. That Michael, appreciate the question, and in a way, it's kind of, are we genetically imposed to be a certain way? Do we grow up in a certain family and we become that, like we're conditioned, and what can we do about it? What sort of, that's a good question, Olivia. How would you take that one on?
Absolutely. I think that and you mentioned it as well, it's the conditions and how we were brought up, like we take on a certain archetype. And I'll give you an example with my clients. For example, there's this lady who was telling me like, I have this friend who always comes to me and she always wants my advice and she just drains my energy. And even when I tell her what to do, then she doesn't listen to me, blah, blah, blah. So she was taking obviously like this kind of victimhood role, right? And so we went a little deeper, and then what we came out and we discovered is like that there was this big need of her. Like she had embodied the archetype of the healer or the savior, who is always available 24/7. If you need anything, I'm always here, financially, emotionally, and so forth. And so I said, where are you not exercising your power to say no and to set healthy boundaries? And then she was like, what are boundaries? Like, what is this even? Yeah, because she wasn't used to setting boundaries, because she, from an early age in her life, had always been the one to be there for others, including her parents. So even though she was the daughter, she was parenting the parents. And so unless we go into those places and we start to dig a little deeper, why is it? We live, under the veil, in the illusion of the ego self, with all these attachments of, but I've always been the helper. But I've always been the overachiever, for example. And this, eventually, it catches up on you, because if you have always been the overachiever, and imagine at some point something happens, like I don't know, you step on a banana, you fall down, you break a leg, and then all of a sudden you need assistance. You need to be helped. That is going to be a huge challenge, because you've always been independent. You have always been proud to do things on your own. And all of a sudden you get to be yin. You no longer can be yang. And this is also a blessing in disguise. Why? Because we're ever expansive energy beings, and we are here to learn and integrate lessons in balance, in harmony in our lives. So if you've always only been alpha and masculine, there will be a time where you will come to balance that yin and yang, like that yin and yang, what we see. Exactly.
After your first explanation around neurosis and psychosis, I've actually got clarity on what yin and yang are much better. Even though I've heard about it, it just seems to be clearer now. And I've been going through a process recently. A guy called Kyle Cease, I don't know, he was a famous comedian and now he's a transformational comedian in some sort of way. And he talks about holding space and letting go of all of this sort of past emotions, past trauma, past fears, which are part of, you said something is really important, is the not having the ability to say no, because we're carrying all this stuff around and we're living in the past. When someone asks us, will you do this or will you do that? You go, yes, because you haven't got the clarity somehow. How do people know, like, hold on, I actually need help. I would like to go to somebody who understands where healthy boundaries are, when to say no, when I'm succumbing to my fear, Olivia. Because I hear you give even free, you give a lot of answers to these questions, even in your posts. And so how does someone say, okay, well, how could they go to you and say, give me help, assess me, tell me, not that you want to give me, don't give me a grade, but tell me where I could help myself be better,
Yeah. Well, you grade yourself, to be honest. And the way to know is when you just feel like our feelings are not just willy-nilly there because they're like, oh, this thing that happens. Our feelings are actually our internal compass. When
Mhm.
we feel great, it means that we are in alignment with our truth. It means that our energy, our energetic being, our anatomy is healthy. It is glowing. It's like your aura. People call it your aura. Well, this is your chakras. This is your energetic body. When we are feeling drained of energy, depressed, sad, you name it, fearful, this is the way that we know something isn't right, because
Yeah.
somewhere along the line you are stuck in the story of your life. Because I have a 16-week program and it's called From Story to Journey. The story is locked. Think
Okay.
about this. In a story, there's always a protagonist, an antagonist, there's
Yeah.
a plot, there's a theme, there's like a spike, then there's a climax. Oh, this happened. And then maybe you have another one. But there's always a story, and people love stories. They love to be caught in the drama of their lives. Think
So
if I told you
we're
right now.
just replaying a story is kind of what you're saying.
Absolutely. I call it the old cassette player. We
Okay.
actually go through one of the sessions that we go through in this 16-week program is called the old cassette player. And
Yeah.
it's like, what are those limiting beliefs that keep on repeat? You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're fat. You're fat. You're nobody. No one's going to want you. You're Bolivian. You know. And so when you catch yourself, no, you laugh, but this is true. Like for the longest time, I used to be like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do that because, well, I come from a poor country. And whereas now I'm like, this is an asset. I'm Bolivia from Bolivia. Like it rhymes. Like how amazing is that? So,
Fantastic.
yeah. So to go back to what you were saying, and the question, how do you know? Well, you assess yourself. And when you feel like enough is enough, that's the one question that I always ask people when we get on the intro call, because the intro call is to see like, am I suitable to assist you with your perceived issue? And do
Sure.
you feel also a receptivity? Do you
Yeah.
feel like the vibe between us, right? And that's always the question. Have you had enough? Have you had enough? Because if not, you are squeezing the juice out of your story. It serves you a purpose to be like, oh, pobrecito, tadinho, they say in Portuguese, like poor you, because you have a story to tell people. Then this happened to me, and this happened to me. But when you are done, when you just really just want to feel good, you want to live your greatest life, it doesn't matter. You're ready to let go of the story in order to open up to what I call the journey. And the journey is choosing every single step of the way. Do I want A or B? A or B? A, B, or C? A, B, or C, or D? You get to choose as many doorways as you want to go through. And then you do it through awareness, through compassion, through love, through self-love, respect, and all these beautiful, like setting healthy boundaries and everything we've been talking about. So how do you know? You
Yeah.
feel. You
Excellent.
feel.
Excellent. So when someone comes along, it's kind of identifying their own stories and then sort of letting those go in some sort of way across this process, Olivia. Is
No,
that
the
kind
thing
of
is not some sort of way. Some sort of way sounds very abstract, and it is not abstract. I mean, energy
sure.
is this like ethereal thing, which a lot of people, especially men, I would say, they're like, well, how do I deal with emotions, right? Because like we still are carrying a lot of the collective pain body that also like Arturo talks about, which is men don't cry, men don't show emotion, men need to be tough, men need to, and on it goes. Luckily we are opening up now and things are starting to change and men are starting to embrace this new way of being, which is more balanced, I would say, with the feminine as well. So yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey in itself.
So my main question that I ask all of my guests on this one is, what drives you to do what you do? I have a story. I come from a small town in Ireland, and if I go to all of my background, my family, my everything, that's what brought me to be here. And you have a strong presence there. So is there something that you want or you're searching for, or I think you said something fantastic. We had a previous conversation, which I'll just bring it up, is you have this now overflow of energy, which I really love. Then you want to share that. So what is it that brought you to the point of having the overflow, and how does that drive you on a day-to-day basis, Olivia?
One question that since I can remember has always been present for me. And it's, who am I? 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 Which branches into a second question, not just as important, but it's, who am I and what am I here for? Who am I? What am I here for? Like, what is my service to this world? What are my natural gifts and passions and talents that just come so natural to me that it just is a joy to do that, and I could do that every day 24/7. And this is to create connection, to facilitate information that is oriented towards being a better human being, just more loving. What is better? Because better entails worse, better and worse is duality.
Yeah.
I just caught myself. But it's about really living in flow. Like, why are we doing things we don't want to do? Why are people still in jobs that they don't want to be in? I mean, I went through it myself. So as well, a part of the, me answering this is I went through the whole story to journey. I did it all myself, like a pioneer. I had no guidance. I had no one to tell me, okay, now we're going to play the old cassette player. This is session number. No, I didn't. I had to kind of be like, okay, what's going on? What is this tangled mess? And how do I make sense out of it all? And I had to go through heartbreak and hardship and like traveling across the world. Like, actually, Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City, which is the first point out of Bolivia when I left my country when I was 27 years old. That was 10 years ago. Whoa, I just had a moment there. It actually is diametrically opposite to my city. Like, I crossed literally the whole world. I didn't just go like 2 hours away from home. I went across the world because I needed that space in order to ask this question, who am I? And then I have arrived more and more and more at who am I based on who I am not. So it's just such a beautiful journey. And I can't imagine people living their whole life dead, because that's not living. When you don't ask yourself higher order questions and you're just going through the hamster wheel of making money, hoping that COVID is done in order to travel, in order to have 2 weeks of like supposed rest in order to get back to work to earn your pension. Oh my God, it's a trap. It's a trap. Wake up, people.
So can I've also lived in a lot of other countries, and so I'm going to ask you your experience. When I arrive in a new country, never been there before, what goes through your mind? How do you approach, maybe is the right word. How do you approach coming from, I don't know where in Bolivia, landing in Ho Chi Minh City and going, oh my God, what do I do? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? How do I live my day? Well, how do you approach that? Because it must be a fantastically refreshing experience, Olivia.
It has changed. Every place has changed, and my frequency has been different in every place. So when I first arrived, of course, it was I was fresh with my yoga journey like 10 years ago, and so yeah, there was so much that I was still so unaware of back then. So of course there was a lot more tendency to be fearful and to go into the what ifs and to all of these things, because that's where I existed energetically before. That's where my being was, my level of consciousness. Mm-hmm. As I discovered meditation, as I trained and practiced, as I did my Vipassana retreats, all these things, as I moved to Bali, as I went into my shadow self, like all energetic, work, shadow work, light work, healing, Reiki, everything. The more that my frequencies grew and like are more elevated, more purified, the easier it has become for me to trust the process of life, to trust the people around me, to trust that no matter where I am, I feel that you were talking about confidence, and this is so integral to how I experience myself these days. Just last night I was invited to Taco Tuesday in Izmir. Are you kidding me? Like, people find me because I do the practice of going into what Abraham Hicks calls your vortex, which is your place of creation. And from that place, I manifest that wherever I go, I am well received, I am welcomed, I make friends, and it's, juicy connections and so forth. So now I use the power of conscious creation, which before was nothing that I ever even knew was possible. So now I am a conscious creator, and I live my life 100% responsible. So I know that whatever's coming my way, I'm not like, oh, well, this happened to me. I'm creating all the time, manifesting, 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 manifesting all
Love
the
it.
time.
Love it.
Yeah.
You just brought back a memory. One of my first trips abroad was to New York as a student. And what I did, now I know I've shaved my head there actually a couple of days ago, but I had a big head of curly hair as a young man. And when I went to New York, I was there like 2 weeks. I decided I'm going to shave my head. Now, if I had done that in my town where I come from in Ireland, people would have, oh, he's from here. He goes to that school. That's where he lives. And I would have felt, I don't think I would have had the bravery to do that thing in my hometown. And like now that I've lived in a lot of countries, that shaving my head, I've done that in many ways. And I'm not just talking physically. I can kind of, well, who do I want to be today? Because of, I think that movement gave me that insight into do that. And it sounds like, you know, you're similar in a way by your moving and changing your frequencies. And movement doesn't mean just traveling. It can mean doing what you're doing, is doing yoga, doing Reiki, doing different activities, meeting different people. What would you encourage people to do to just break their pattern in a small way and see a difference, Olivia?
That's a great question. First of all, it's a willingness. It's just a knowingness that this is no longer serving me.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, you don't have to even leave. There's a sponsored ad that just keeps popping and popping, and I kind of like the music, so I let it be. You know, but it's the something like the tagline, the copy says something like, you don't need to go to Bali in order to experience, you know, a massive transformation. And it is so true, because as within, so without. You know, NLP, one of the precepts is perception is projection.
Sure.
So the health and well-being of your inner world, of your inner reality, your realm, will be reflected by the outer world. But something needs to click, and I think that you need to exhaust what you have been doing in order to one day wake up and be like, no, again, like no more, not this again, Groundhog Day. And when that happens, no matter what it is, you are on the right path, because you are choosing to just change something. You know, I'm not going to brush my teeth this way anymore, not ever again. I'm going to brush it backwards. And then again, you get to test who you are based on who you are not. So just trying something different already is a step in the right direction.
Oh, brilliant. You just reminded me now of, I was 14 years old, of an event when I had enough. Where I grew up, it was very important that the neighbors thought of you as nice people. And, you know, the outside perception was really important. And in Ireland, it rains, I think 70% of the day. So I don't know if you haven't been there. Like, the people are fantastic, but it rains all the time. And I was crossing the green close to where my house was. And this elderly lady, who was 84 at the time, I was 14, knew her very well. She only lived 3 doors up. And she says, oh, it's a terrible, miserable day. You know, and that'd be a normal thing to say. And I just had enough. And I said, well, if you don't like it, we've a whole planet. You can go live in Spain. And she's like, you know, in shock. But really, it wasn't about the weather, Olivia. It was like, you know what? Complain and do something, or shut up. I kind of, in that moment about that particular thing, I had enough. So I sometimes think high tolerance is not a good thing. To be low tolerant in certain areas, now I don't want to generalize, can be fantastic, but that sparked me in the back of my head. That's been there for years, going, you know, if I'm telling her to do it, I have to take that on board and do it myself. And that sensitivity, I think, is really key to how we live our lives. And I think I'd be listening to your, you know, you come across some topics, and, you know, you talk about relationships, you talk about sexuality, you go into areas where some of us aren't super comfortable about talking about those type of topics, and myself included. That's why I'm bringing them up. And it's like, oh, take a deep breath, Jonathan. You can have a talk with this lady. You know, I can talk about business and stand up in corporations and talk in front of hundreds of people, but then Do I talk about relationships, and do I talk about that fear? Like, it's like what you were saying to me earlier, feel the fear and lean into it. And my first talk with you, like not so long ago, was I was talking to the people around me. I'm going to be talking to somebody about relationships. I'm like, oh God. And, if it had been anything about like high tech or whatever, that's been my world for years. So I'm comfortable in it. Just to let you know that it can, well, from my perspective, each one of us have different areas where we don't feel so secure, or we're not used to talking about, at least. And I like that you're able to bring up those, and I don't think you're even meaning to be provocative, well, maybe you are a little bit, but bring up those areas that you're good to talk about, areas that people are not so comfortable with. I think that's fantastic.
And what, Jonathan, thank you so much. But the whole point of it, and it just pains me, is that it is such it is a part of being human. Like, sexuality is, you're either having it and loving it, or you're having it and not loving it, or you're not having it and wanting it, but somehow, and you're like, wait, what? And like 2 + 2 is 4. Yeah. But somewhere along the line, we are sexual beings. We are. Yeah. Sure. Even look at, like, I mean, not to get into this topic, but like, parentheses, like even the Catholic Church, like, no one stops talking about it because it's happening. Like, things happen because there are drives and there are instinctual things, And so why are we not addressing it? Because you see, for me, why it has become so easy and it flows to talk about sexuality, it's because the word sex, it no longer has that connotation. When I think sex, I think energy. Okay. If you exchange the word sex for the word energy, how is your energy moving? How are you giving and receiving of that energy? How are you harnessing that energy? How are you maintaining it healthy? How are you moving it? When you use the word energy, it's like, wow, it makes sense. You want to be healthy and move that energy. But if I say, how are you doing sex? Oh my God, I'm not even. Oh my God, people get all sorts of shy. But it's not about it. Like, if we don't know how to move our sexual energy, we cannot be fully, completely healthy. Because it's a part of our human nature and when part of the experience we have as humans. So it's very important. It's one of those doorways I told you that, like, when we walk through, like, there is so much to gain once we know how to harness this energy. So that's, and I want to go back just a little bit because this was brilliant. That you mentioned about your neighbor and the rainy weather. You see, it serves a purpose. Complaining, actually, it is very tedious. And it's always energy draining, and people do it a ton everywhere. But if you ask yourself, why do people do it when it's just so boring? Why do people do it? Because it establishes a connection. It establishes a bond. Yeah. Because if she says it's such a horrible day, what are you going to answer? Oh yeah, it's such a horrible day. Oh my God, I wonder when the sun will come out again. Oh, it's been days. Oh, and on you go. And you know what? Then she leaves thinking, oh, such a beautiful neighbor. I have such great conversation we had. And you actually believe there's an illusion that you have connected, but you're connecting through negative instead of through positive, right? And so there, when you start to do conscious work, you realize and you catch yourself when you're yearning to connect and when you have something to bring to the table that is positive. And if not, you can stay quiet rather than complain, right? So it does establish connection, and that's why people do it.
Excellent. Michael just asked a question a couple of minutes ago. I saw it, and I think you've just answered it now, Olivia. Hi, Olivia. You're so positive, a can-do attitude. In your opinion, what are the main reasons some people are so negative? And I think what you just said could definitely be one of those key drivers. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, and thank you, Michael, for asking, and is that there is actually a physiological reaction. Like, when we are in fear mode, we are using our adrenal glands, right? They are secreting adrenaline and cortisol, and our body is on high drive. And when we stop, basically, if we were to go into happy mode, all of a sudden, like someone just presses a switch and all of a sudden we're sunshine and rainbows and like magic, stardust, we wouldn't know how to cope, because it would be as if all of a sudden you don't drink coffee for the rest of your life. You'd be like, oh, where is my shot of espresso? Like, people are hooked on these toxic chemicals that are running and coursing through our body, through our system. And
Yeah.
that's why people continue to live in that negativity, because they don't realize that they are intoxicated. That is actually the word. We are intoxicated, and we continue to feed ourselves toxins because to some degree it feels good. It gives us a sense of power. When you complain, it gives you the illusion of power. Like, oh, you know better, and then therefore you get to claim that this is the shittiest day of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's broadcasting it. But if you actually realize, like, look at the monks. We have so much to learn from them. They live such a simple life, and that's it. They seek, and their pursuit is the pursuit of balance, of harmony, of peace. They might not have a lot of stories to tell, and that's okay. But we get like hooked on the drama and what happened. This is why there are soap operas, reality TV shows, sensationalism on TV. As soon as you turn it on and you want to check what's going on in the world, it's like everything is messed up. I don't watch TV for like about 8 years. I don't watch TV. And that's why people ask me, how are you so positive? I'm like, stop watching shit. Stop intoxicating yourself with all sorts of everything. Social media now has become the new TV. Like the phone is your new TV. You're
Absolutely.
like swiping is the same as sapping. So, awareness. Watch yourself, catch yourself.
Wonderful. I think you're sharing a lot of insights that I think you can help people with on where they're at. And you've come obviously a long way in your journey, 10 years in the traveling business, the other side of the world. And I think we were actually in a common place, KL, for a while. I think that was a lovely place. I have to say that I have very fond memories of my year there, What I'd love to ask you, Olivia, is if you were to meet the girl before she got on the plane in Bolivia, your younger self, and you could give her one piece of advice before she gets on the plane, just one simple piece of advice, what would that be?
Skip the pho.
Very good, very good, very good.
I was never fond of that soup. I don't know. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to try all this Vietnamese food. And like, no, but in all seriousness, that's a great question. Let me feel into it. I would say it's all working out. It's all working out. Like, just trust. It's all working out. It's not even in the future. It's going to work out. It is working out every step of the way. Things are unfolding and the universe is supporting. What? The question that I came here to answer in this lifetime. Who am I?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Excellent. Lovely. I'd like to say to everyone, I've been watching Olivia for a while and listening to her. And one of the things I really liked was she put me on to Havanan salsa music. I think it was a Spotify channel. I looked it up, and then that went on in the kitchen in our house for a while. So we really liked that. So, this music, I know we're having a chat here, but we nearly should have a band in the background, to be honest, for this particular show. I recommend that you all follow Olivia. You'll find her. We'll put all her social media links, etc., on everywhere. And if this is something that interests you, and you want to explore where you're at and where you could lean into, or in my case, lean back from fear, or I recommend you listen to her, reach out to her, have contact. And yes, thank you very, very much, Olivia, for sharing your time and your ideas with us. And I look forward to, watching you in the future and hopefully meeting again at some stage.
Thank you so much. I'll be releasing my playlist of manifestation chamber songs.
You have to put a Cuban salsa one at the end, please. If you don't mind.
Totally, absolutely. It's reggaeton, bachata, Cuban salsa, all of it. It's been a joy and pleasure to be here to invest of this beautiful time with you. The orchid in the back there looks beautiful as well, radiant. And lovely new hairstyle of yours as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Have a lovely evening, Olivia, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All the best.